I would like to call this meeting to order. First, the agenda is a roll call.
Trustee Acosta. Trustee Estrada.
Here.
Trustee Nichols. Trustee Sanchez.
Here.
Trustee Van Allen.
Here.
Trustee Williams. Here. President Roth.
Here. We now have to, we do have a board member that is Zooming in today due to recovery from surgery. And so I would like to, we do a motion, correct?
Yes, President.
I would like to make the motion to accept the call in from Bruce Van Allen. Is there a second? First, Rachel.
All those in favor?
Oh, I was thinking it said. So, no Oscar. Good student. Board of Trustee. All the regular board, all those in favor say aye. Aye. And Ferris, do you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, or shall I ask Abel to do that?
It'd probably be more appropriate to be done in the room, but I did want to just clarify that the last motion was to allow that Trustee Van Allen be allowed to participate as a board member due to just cause under AB 2449. I just want to make sure that the record shows that.
Thanks, Ferris. Abel, would you lead us in?
Liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Abel. Well done. Is there a motion? Agenda.
I'll move.
The motion was made by Edward, seconded by Rachel. And all those in favor say aye.
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 The motion passes. Public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address the board regarding items outside the agenda. The board president will recognize any member of the audience not previously placed on the agenda who wishes to speak on a matter directly related to school business. Each speaker on any specific topic may speak for up to 3 minutes, unless otherwise limited or extended by the president. The president may allot time to those wishing to speak, but no action will be taken on matters presented. If appropriate, the president or any member of the board may direct that a matter be referred to the superintendent's office for placement on a future agenda. Please, do we have anyone from the public?
There's been no request for public comment, President Roth.
Very much. Correspondence. Any
President
correspondence?
Roth, may I request that you move the mic closer to your mic?
Is there more cord? I'll just move closer to Abel. Okay, is that better? So no correspondence has been received since our,
No correspondence has been sent to the board as an entirety, but there has been correspondence from the county elections department to the trustees whose positions are up for reelection. It was correspondence of information about reapplying.
okay, thank you.
If you did not receive that email, you can let me know and I will forward that over.
Okay. Next item is 6.1. The Santa Cruz County Office of Education Summary of Support for School Districts. In accordance with Education Code number 52066, parentheses I, the County Superintendent of Schools must prepare an annual summary of how the County Superintendent of Schools plans to support school districts and schools within the county. Dr. Sabah?
Yes, thank you so much, and thanks for allowing me to join you remotely. You see two names on this presentation, Angela Meeker, who has retired as of June 30th, and Marcia Russell, Dr. Marcia Russell, who is our new Associate Superintendent of our Ed Services Department. And so this is, I think, the first time that Marcia sits at that chair. She has been started the end of the school year for 23-24 as our Ed Services Associate Suit. And we've been really grateful for her expertise and support these last few weeks, especially since Angela left a little bit early and started her retirement a little bit earlier. This summary is kind of an exciting opportunity for the County Office of Education to talk about the different kinds of ways that the County Office of Education is supporting school districts. And there's a variety of different things efforts that we do. And this is a new requirement, or a newer requirement that the state has asked of county offices of education. And so Marcia, who's been a part of our team as the executive director for district support, is really the ideal person to do this presentation and talk about the different kinds of ways that we are supporting school districts. And it's exciting because there's a lot of new ways that we're providing that support. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Russell. And welcome.
Okay, perfect, thank you. I think I have a green light. Thank you. All right, good afternoon, President Roth, trustees. I am Marcia Russell, pleased to be with you today, and we are going to be sharing a summary of our planned support for the upcoming school year related to LCAP support and differentiated assistance for school districts as well as charter schools, which is new this year. So the first slide we'll share is the purpose of this report. As Dr. Sabah mentioned, this is a newer requirement, but it is required by county offices of ed to be submitted every June at the same meeting at which the county office LCAPs are presented. And it is designed to be reviewed by the CDE board. And it is a report that shares the information for our planned support for the upcoming year. It will also give you good information about the kinds of things we've already been doing. On the next slide, we'll take a look at really just framing all of this work. Much of this that you're going to hear tonight is about accountability requirements, and sometimes people think of that as compliance, but really it's about the four things you see on the screen here. The LCAP, or Local Control Accountability Plan, really is designed to serve as the strategic plan for school districts, county offices of education schools, as well as charter schools. And that really is joined directly with the California School Dashboard. So the dashboard provides lots of data. This year, it included additional data that we haven't seen in the last few years due to the pandemic. And the report is really driven by the results that we're seeing on the California School Dashboard in terms of our students' performance in academics, school climate, culture, and engagement. That is also coupled with differentiated assistance. And differentiated assistance is part of the entire system that is designed where county offices of education are providing support to school districts and now also to charter schools who have areas on the California School Dashboard in which they're not meeting the full requirements. And so differentiated assistance is really truly a collaborative and supportive process. And it's one that's really designed to be providing additional resources and supports for charters and districts that have areas for improvement. And then all of this is really in a broader area that we often don't hear quite as much about, and that is the statewide system of support. So county offices are connected to the statewide system of support. We help connect districts and charters to that statewide system of support. And that statewide system includes a variety of programs, both within the Department of Education as well as outside that department, that are designed to provide targeted technical support or additional resources in very specific areas that we may not have the capacity to build ourselves. And so we collaborate through that statewide system of support. We also network through that system of support with county offices of education, as well as CDE, the State Board of Education, and a variety of organizations throughout the state to provide a clear system of support that's coherent across all counties in the state and that provides that differentiated assistance and support for LCAP development. Most importantly, sorry, can we go back one? Most importantly, you see that arrow pointing down. All of this, most importantly, is about achieving equitable outcomes for all students. So the emphasis is on the students, and here, everything we're doing in the LCAP development, the school dashboard that's publicly reported, differentiated assistance, as well as that system of support, is really designed to ensure that we're achieving equitable outcomes for all students. There are 3 required goals in this summary of support. So the first goal for county offices of education is that we will approve all district LCAPs. And so that includes COE staff who are supporting LCAP planning and writing. And what you see here are some examples of the kind of support that we've provided. We've provided individual meetings. Our business services as well as educational services meets with every single district and provides, here's about the support they need, the support they received the prior year, and support they'd like to see in the coming year with their LCAP development. We do large group trainings for all charters and districts in the county, and those are provided throughout the year to provide updates on LCAP templates, planning and development, new educational code requirements, as well as best practices for designing an effective strategic plan through your LCAP, as well as supporting equitable outcomes through using your dashboard data. We also then shift into small group community of practice sessions where we invite districts and charter leaders to come together. Oftentimes that's their business services and instructional services teams coming together for a community of practice where they can learn from each other and share their own best practices within LCAP development, dashboard development, and differentiated assistance. And it's also where we can provide additional, more customized and individualized technical support in writing their LCAPs to those districts. And then we also offer early review, and we really encourage all districts to submit their LCAPs to us to allow us to review their LCAPs early. That allows us to catch anything that they might need to adjust in their LCAP before submitting it for their public hearing and their school board approval. We're very pleased to see that this year we were able to do early review with every single school district in the county, so that was wonderful. And being the first year of differentiated assistance eligibility for charter schools, we also had most of our charters submit their LCAPs for early review. We do approval of LCAPs. And that occurs by district boards by June 30th. We ensure that occurs and meets all requirements. And then the county superintendent approves all LCAPs over the summer. So that includes a lot of very specific work looking at all LCAPs and providing that support. The second required goal is to provide technical assistance, and that oftentimes becomes a large portion of what we do. Technical assistance is also called differentiated assistance. And we are currently providing this school year and into the fall differentiated assistance support for Live Oak School District, Pajaro Valley Unified School District, Santa Cruz City High School District, and for the first year I mentioned charter schools are eligible for differentiated assistance, and we're providing that to Alianza Charter School in Watsonville. Support includes a variety of things, but the areas that you see on the slide are the areas in which those charters and districts qualified. Students with disabilities and English learners, as well as the areas of chronic absenteeism, mathematics, and English language arts. Districts qualify when they have a student group, such as English learners or students with disabilities, on the California School Dashboard, performing in the red category, the lowest category, in 2 or more areas. One area or priority area is considered academics. Academics is English language arts and mathematics. And a second area of priority would be things like pupil engagement, school climate, and in this case, it's engagement through chronic absenteeism. So each of these LEAs has qualified in either math or language arts, sometimes both, and also chronic absenteeism. We know each of these 3 areas and these 2 student groups are the primary areas and the primary student groups in the state of California in which districts qualify. 64% of districts this year actually qualified for differentiated assistance, which is a very large number, primarily due to our ongoing chronic absenteeism that has been climbing but is starting to decline since the pandemic. Again, all in focus of equitable outcomes for these students. So technical assistance includes targeted support. I mentioned that that was supportive and collaborative, and so that includes us having a COE team that goes out to support these charters and districts. We hold meetings with them, initial meetings, to make sure they understand how and why they qualified. We examine data with them on these particular student groups as well as their overall student performance. We help create action plans with them to identify focus areas to look at and targeted actions that we can take to try and address the low performance and disparities between student groups. And then we look at identifying ongoing metrics that we're going to look at to measure our progress towards improvement. We also facilitate team meetings. So every district or charter develops a differentiated assistance team that's comprised of people from teachers to counselors to administrators who all have expertise in the areas that we're trying to support. The other thing we do is you've often probably heard of MTSS or RTI and the tiered system of support, and we provide supports for everyone. That's tier 1. We provide additional supports for students who might need additional support, tier 2, and then tier 3 is often reserved for the smallest number who might need support inside or outside the classroom. In this case, we have a similar model with differentiated assistance. Some of those trainings that I mentioned earlier, those small group sessions, those are designed as the broad supports for everyone. We also provide core instructional support. So in addition to those differentiated assistance meetings I mentioned, we're also doing targeted support with districts who currently qualify for differentiated assistance, as well as ones who recently qualified, so that we can help them remain no longer qualifying for differentiated assistance. And so that includes things you see here. We've done in the past and already have planned for next school year, professional development for a variety of teachers in the areas of mathematics. We have a multilingual network for best practices and supporting English learners. We have training and support with the SELPA director. We have provided culturally responsive teaching and equity-based professional development, and we'll be continuing to do that next school year in several districts that currently qualify for differentiated assistance, including Pajaro Valley Unified School District, Alianza Charter School, and Santa Cruz City High School District. We also do coordination of monthly professional learning networks to bring people together. And then due to mathematics performance in the county, county-wide, we are initiating the Santa Cruz County Mathematics Initiative that will be supporting countywide mathematics support. So many of the members of the CNI team and educational services team are providing training, technical support, and individual meetings to provide that core instructional support. The other thing we do is we have collaboration across all departments. So an example of what we'll be doing in the coming year is we're collaborating with the equity team at the County Office of Ed to build on existing anti-bias, anti-racist work and culturally responsive pedagogy training, including equity walks that are occurring. We are partnering the equity team with curriculum and instruction department coordinators to do transcript analysis for A to G completion of high school students in local school districts, both ones that currently qualify for differentiated assistance as well as ones that recently qualified. And then we are partnering that team with the social emotional academic Cal Hope support, and that's to provide training for counselors and school staff around social emotional well-being and building of teacher-student relationships. This is an example of how 3 different departments in the County Office of Education are coming together to provide support, again, to improve more equitable outcomes for all students and to address those areas of need based on differentiated assistance qualification as well as prior qualification. So the total budget is primarily housed in this goal 2 in our summary of plan support. And that includes, in many cases, the personnel that I just described who are providing all of this support. So you can see the total budget there at the top. These are funds provided by the state for us to provide this kind of differentiated support. It includes salaries, benefits, indirect costs, and travel for things like the math instructional practices, inclusion supports for students with disabilities, leadership around equity and inclusion of all students, supporting multilingual learners. We also use an improvement science approach in which we're examining the data, identifying a focus area, unleashing or revealing the root causes of some of these needs, and then actually creating action plans with the districts. So the budget is covering the support staff at the county office to provide all of that support at the districts. And then the final required portion of the summary of planned support is to provide support in implementing the LCAP. So I've shared a little bit about the kinds of workshops and communities of practice that we've developed with the LCAP. You can see here another piece of this is that we as county office staff are analyzing the LCAPs very, very closely. So much of our summer after these LCAPs are approved is spent actually with a fine-tooth comb going through every LCAP, ensuring that what is in there is allowed by Ed Code, is meeting all of the requirements in terms of the required amounts of expenditures for students who are identified within the LCFF model. And it also includes things like the ongoing professional learning network, where we're discussing the LCAP, we're discussing how we can make the LCAP more coherent in our districts, and then those networks that I mentioned before. So all of these are resources and support where we're bringing together county office and charter leaders to really try and learn about and make sure we understand how to effectively implement the LCAP so it is a true living document within an LEA. I mentioned earlier that broader statewide system of support. So this is one example of some of that broader statewide system of support that includes the collaboration that occurs in order for us as a county office to provide the level of support needed for districts. And so in this case, you can see first the California Collaborative for Educational Excellence is an organization that is a state organization, and they are directly connected into several various support systems within the state. So if we need particular support, for example, with students who are both English learners and students with disabilities, then we can actually get support directly from them to assist us in especially some of the situations where we might have districts with more areas of need than just one student group or one academic area. We also, of course, have the California Department of Education, so we as a county office collaborate with them extensively. And then CSESA, the California County Superintendent's Educational Services Association. They are county office leaders, and we come together regularly to share practices, calibrate around LCAP support, and really provide differentiated assistance for all. We also have geographic lead agencies. So we're in Region 5. The Mid-State Collaborative, led by Tulare County Office of Education, is another place where we come together as county office leaders providing differentiated assistance support and LCAP support. And so we meet regularly to try and, again, identify best practices and move forward from there. We also do visits to each other's county offices to learn about and visit the sites in which we're providing differentiated assistance. And then we also have the system of support lead agencies. And so those are several lead agencies within the state of California that provide support, again, to county offices, and we can then connect districts directly to them to do very customized data analysis, for example, or to identify resources or technical tools that districts can use to address areas of need. And then finally, this is just a summary of what I've shared already, which is really, these are all of the efforts we're doing. Again, this is a very collaborative effort. Our focus is really on maintaining a focus with districts and charters on improving outcomes for all students. And we provide follow-up assistance as needed. And as I mentioned, we're really working with a lot of school districts on an ongoing basis to ensure that they do not qualify for differentiated assistance in the future and can continue those improved outcomes for all students. And then finally, I'll share on the next slide just this graphic I'll come back to again. Really identifying these 4 areas that we've talked about, the 3 goals in our plan, and the fact that the bottom line is what you see on the bottom of that slide, which is really, we are truly all about doing this work in support of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you. Very nice presentation.
Thank you.
Board, do you have any questions? You're pointing at me. Oh.
Apologize profusely for my tardiness. I'm really sorry.
Accepted. Rachel?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, very succinct and thorough. Thank you for that. I had one question regarding the directed assistance. It says it's focused on schools within, is it focused within schools within the district, or is it as a district as a whole? Meaning, you know, do they all get the same level, or are you focused on particular schools within that district that qualifies?
That's a really great question. So differentiated assistance is a district-wide or charter-wide designation. One of the steps that we do take in examining the data is, for example, if a district qualified for English learners and they qualified for chronic absenteeism and English language arts, for example, then we disaggregate the data and we do it by site. And we also take a look at differences. For example, Santa Cruz City High School District is a good example of this. They have newcomer English learner students based in a program at one school. And so performance there may look different for English learners than it does at other schools. And so we then do look more at the school level and see, are there needs? We also try and disaggregate by other categories as well, though. For example, long-term English learners who also have an IEP or a 504. And we try and disaggregate the data to see if we have any patterns that we can identify, and therefore then identify additional supports that might be needed based on the initial qualification. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, and welcome to the family,
Thank you.
or being seated up here for the first time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
If I could just add a thanks as well. I think that the services in our Ed Services division has really increased and improved, and I think every year we continue to enhance and strengthen this team. There is a new addition who you will be meeting in the future. We have a person who has replaced Marsha and is going to be taking her position. Brooke, help me out with the last name, Marsha. Yes. And Brooke is going to be also brings a great deal of knowledge and data analytics to the team. And so I'm really excited about all the different things that we're working on. We also see a lot of partnership and collaboration from our districts and kind of an eagerness to want to work with us. And so I think that this work is going to continue to make improvements on behalf of students and to strengthen their opportunities and outcomes. So thank you so much for that presentation, Marcia.
Okay. Moving on to item 6.2, countywide plan for expelled youth presentation. Dr. Sabah, do you want to introduce this?
I would be happy to. I see that that Jen is joining us right now. And so this is when I was at the Monterey County Office of Education, I was responsible for this process, and I got to work with Dr. Eisen Gonzalez a little bit about this, but of course she's done some great things. This is also a requirement in the education code for county offices of education to work with all our partner districts and to reduce the number of students who are expelled from school. We see that as one of the our most difficult and most challenging decisions that school district has to make. And we've seen some great progress across our school districts in making sure that we're looking at alternatives like restorative alternatives, looking at a variety of support systems to ensure that our students are able to stay in school in our districts and continue their education, perhaps through alternatives and coming to us if necessary, before expulsion or after expulsion. And I feel like we have a very, very effective alternative education program that works to support students, whether as a preventative measure prior to their life, if they are being unsuccessful in traditional schools, or after. And so it's a great opportunity this plan is a great opportunity for us to connect with our districts and to continue this important work. And so I'll turn it over to Dr. Isaac Gonzalez. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Sabah, and that's my presentation. That was perfect. That really did sum it up well. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here, and I promise today I'll be speaking a lot less than our board meeting last week. As Dr. Sabah mentioned, this is a plan that he knows very well. He did it before. He did it, I believe, when your first year here too. So it's a triennial plan. Every 3 years it is updated. And boy, 3 years ago, we were in a completely different place than we are now. So it's a really good reminder and just to go back and look at it and see what has changed and what has worked and what hasn't. And I think this was the most dramatic change that we've had in a 3-year span was when the last time we updated this. So as we just discussed, the requirements are very short for this plan. It's been required for many years, but essentially list and describe the options that are available in the county, which there's a myriad of options for youth who might be expelled. And additionally, school boards have the right to suspend an expulsion, and they can do as they wish with students who are expelled. So there's so many options. And I always say when I meet families that we might be one of the smallest counties in California, but we probably have more educational options than some of the largest counties out there, because we really do have a committed educational community. So the countywide plan also addresses gaps in services and strategies for filling them. So it's also very interesting when you have these conversations and survey student service support leaders throughout the county and superintendents. It's interesting to see the trends that happen as this plan is updated every 3 years. And then additionally, alternatives. So there are all these different categories of schools in California, and one of them is a community day school, which is specifically does support some expelled students, but that might not be the right school for them as well. And so what other programs are out there? And as Dr. Sabah mentioned, we have many options and programs to meet the needs of all of these students. Next slide, please. All right, so the process that we've done each time we do an update, because this is not a new plan, so it isn't brought to district school boards and it isn't brought as an adoption item. It is simply an update. What we do is we send out a Google form, and we also have a meeting based on it. So the Google form is really helpful to be able to get information and prime people for conversations and have them reflect upon the previous 3-year plan, and then how the work we've done, and then moving forward. And it's also interesting because we have not all the time turnover, but there are definitely people in new positions. And so it becomes an opportunity for people who are in new positions in a district to review what their predecessor had said 3 years ago and to look at the data. So it's definitely a really good opportunity to review and then look and move forward. So we did a survey and we did a meeting. Also the student service directors and the superintendents were all involved in reviewing the previous plan, looking at our progress and growth, and then inputting areas for continued growth as we move on through the next 3 years. Next slide, please. So I wanted to add on here a little bit of the data piece, since it was, like I had mentioned, it was the pandemic 3 years ago. There were no expulsions. Doing this plan 3 years ago and surveying people, they were very busy with other things and nobody was getting expelled. It was interesting. But since then, you know, we have come back, and definitely expulsions have increased. But as Dr. Sabah mentioned, they're still at lower levels than they were prior to the pandemic. I can't remember exactly, but prior to the pandemic, I remember it was around, 55. It was in the 50s sometimes of students that were being expelled way back when. And then during the pandemic, it really dipped down to, well, essentially 0 in our county. There were not 0 in the entire state, but 0 here in 2021. And then 21-22 was, looking back, I remember that year. And I remember when students came back from the pandemic and districts were struggling to support behaviors in students that they just hadn't seen. And so that was a year where we had kind of a dramatic increase, but still, like I said, levels lower than before. And then 22-23 is we really started to collaborate and refine our best practices. Expulsions have gone down. There's still disparities that exist. As you can see from the data, overwhelmingly, well, more so male students than female students, Hispanic students more so than white students. And that is a trend that has continued and stayed consistent. And then I don't have the data, of course, for this school year, because that data is not available on DataQuest and finalized yet. It's all certified in CalPADS till the end of the year. But I can say anecdotally in the expulsions, specifically also in North County, that there was an increase, and I anticipate that number to be a little bit higher for the 23-24 school year. Next slide, please. So in going through the feedback from the school district and reflecting upon our progress, these are the 3 areas that we have put forth in this plan to focus on in the next 3 years. And one of them, for the first time, we've never really done this before, was really an area that's focused internally on our programs that I believe is great, because it's focused on supporting students while they're with us, expelled youth who are with us. Okay, so the first and second one are continuing areas that our student service directors and our community wanted to continue to do. So again, countywide opportunities to share best practices for different districts to come together. As Dr. Russell described in her presentation, there's a lot of work that comes through the differentiated assistance process, through looking at data. When you look at trends for suspensions, there's an opportunity to go, okay, well, what are we doing here? What are the best practices we can put forth? What positive behavior supports do you have at this school versus that school? So continue to do that. And I will say that especially since the beginning of the pandemic, our county comes together and collaborates so well. I mean, we have a very good relationships with school districts and school districts with the County Office of Education. So continuing that, not wanting to end that. Again, ongoing collaboration between the COE, alternative education to appropriately place expelled students. Not every expelled student comes to our programs. There are sometimes reasons why they might go to a different program, or their district might suspend the expulsion or transfer them to a different school. Every single expulsion process is emotional and individual, and everyone tries to figure out what is best for the youth. And so the districts and the county office collaborate. Oftentimes when an expulsion might happen, we're involved early on so that we can start to meet the family if a student might be coming to our programs, and really ensure that what is often a very challenging and sometimes traumatic process for families can be as smooth as possible, especially when thinking about ensuring that the student has an educational journey and a pathway for them. And lastly, this one is tied to our LCAP, which we all know so well, and we went through last week at this time. We are very much focusing on increasing college and career readiness and making that a priority. We do a wonderful job right now, but we are, as we mentioned, and it's intertwined with our LCAP, we are growing our college and career counseling and support team and partnering, ensuring we have more career technical education programs, and just honestly making our programs so much stronger each and every year. And so that was such a strong part of our WASP process and our LCAP that it really just tied in with this expelled youth plan, because students sometimes might be doing, have a certain pathway already and supports in place at their high school. And certainly when they come to us, we want to ensure that they have that as well, and that connection with Cabrillo College is there, and whatever their post-grad plans might be. So the last one is unique and internal to our court and community school programs to support youth who are expelled who come to our programs. I think that's it. Oh, and so the process for this plan, which is a little bit different than other plans because it's not being approved. This plan is posted on our website. The law requires that you have the last 3-year plan and the current one moving forward. The links are next to each other, so if anyone wanted to compare the two, they can. And if you go to the CDE website, it will take a very long time for it to get updated because all of these will come in during the summer. But eventually they will post every county office's plans there. We will continue to support expelled youth and continue collaboration. As I mentioned, what comes through in this process is how grateful I am for our relationships with our districts, because as I mentioned, expulsions is a challenging process to go through, and every district does things differently, and every district has different people in the positions, different personalities, and our connection, our human connection with all of our school districts is very important in this process. And that is the countywide plan for expelled youth update. That is what I have for that plan, and I'm here to answer any questions if Dr. Saban and I have not covered them yet. I'm happy to do so.
Board and Bruce on Zoom, any questions?
Thank you for the report. Just one comment. I did go through the development and implementation strategies, and I'm happy to see that there is a plan to address the disproportionate minority representation.
And you reminded me of something. Thank you so much, Trustee Williams. A number that's not in the data, because our data numbers are, even though it seems large to us, they are pretty small, is there is also, from my experience, a disproportionate number of students with disabilities being expelled as well. So it's another thing we're
Disabilities being identified as 504 or IEPs.
IEPs, so a student with an
IEPs.
IEP. Yep, exactly.
Any other comments? All I would like to say is that I too am very grateful that we have such a relationship with our districts.
Definitely.
They listen, we listen, and we work together. And to see the improvement over the years of how these students and their families are handled
Mhm.
uh, is heartening. Because it is an emotional,
It is.
very difficult time
It is.
for everyone. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for your report.
Thank you. I'll stay up here because I'll doing the next one too.
Okay. Moving on to item 6.3, local indicators presentation for the Santa Cruz County Office of Education. Dr. Sabah, would you like to say anything prior to Dr. Isaac Gonzalez's presentation?
Well, just that, as in the same way that we try to look at the whole child, we try to utilize a wide range of data to help us understand the needs of our students, the strengths of our community and our students and parents, and also to kind of have a multidimensional approach. And so the LCAP process allows this to happen by utilizing these local indicators that help us give us a more robust, and not to limit us by utilizing only the things that the state collects. And so this allows us to submit our own measures and our own ways of looking, and helps us to strengthen the quality of the services we have. And so the two presentations that are for our alternative education LCAP as well as our CAC LCAP are really related to these local indicators. Dr. Gonzalez?
Thank you.
Isaac
Thank you.
Gonzalez?
So, everything that's in the local indicators was also addressed last week in the LCAP. So I do want to say that all state priorities are addressed in the LCAP. This is an additional document, as Dr. Sabah mentioned, for our local indicators. A lot of the data, some of it is a little bit redundant because the survey data is in there, but the local indicators do give us an option to personally, internally, and community-wide reflect again on how we are doing on certain priorities. So the local indicators we're not going through. There's 10 state priorities. This presentation is only focused on a few specific ones that are considered the local indicators. And so the requirement for local indicators is that it is presented at the same board meeting that the LCAP is adopted at. And then what happens is we take the local indicator, the sections that we wrote, and then input them in a database, and it goes to the California dashboard. So if you look on the California school dashboard for our County Office of Education, it'll say local like state priority met, local indicator met, and that's through this. So we'll present here, and then it goes into this portal. Then eventually it goes to the dashboard where the local community can see, oh, okay, every single state priority has been met through these two processes, even though the LCAP does encompass all state priorities. Okay, well, I think that was this slide. Yep, that's great. Okay, so and I've condensed it into 2 slides, but I'll talk about each one. So the first slide goes over state priorities 1, 2, and 3. And sometimes actually every year I laugh at the titles of different things because priority 1 is called basic. It's just, there's no creativity in this title at all. And essentially what we do is, do we have all the basic needs met? Do we have teachers in our classroom? Do we have our instructional materials? Do we conduct our fitness reports, and are we ensuring that our schools are safe places for students to attend? And there are different ways that you go through and ensure that students have instructional materials and that facilities are in good repair. And there are multiple places where that one is covered for sure. And teachers, so looking at teachers, and then I also wanted to highlight here too, because there's a new-ish number or newish thing that's here in the local indicators that is a little bit not fitting for alternative education, and it's called TAMO. It's the Teacher Assignment Monitoring Outcome. This is a database that is reported on here, and essentially what it does is to see, are your teachers appropriately credentialed in the classroom? And you'll look at our numbers and wow, that doesn't look right. And it's because this database is not built for alternative education programs. We are one-room schoolhouses where we have teachers with credentials and they cover multiple subjects. This data is just built for essentially the comprehensive traditional system. Do you have a science credential teaching a science class in high school? And our system works differently than that. But one beautiful thing about the local indicators, beautiful might be too strong of a word, sorry. One good thing about local indicators is that in the LCAP, where I must have a metric about priority one, the state gives us the flexibility with local indicators in the LCAP to put whatever is meaningful for us. So in the LCAP, it measures this priority, this basic priority, and how many of our teachers are credentialed, fully credentialed, and how many have permits, they're just starting out. And so we changed that this year because we do have the vast majority of our teachers fully credentialed, but every year we get new teachers coming in that are starting their career, and many of whom started with us as instructional aides and then are continuing on. And so we're always going to have some teachers that are in the very beginning also called like ineffective, and like the wording that's used in the state, I just don't agree with. But long story short, we meet this priority, and in the LCAP, we tried to articulate it in a way that didn't show data that just doesn't match our program. So that's a little bit more background on basic, but that's that one. Priority two, that is implementation of academic standards. Are we implementing the Common Core state standards? And that is done through an internal survey. And that is how that is what you see here in this local indicators presentation and report. And then priority three is the one that, as you know from last week's presentation, our parent community engagement and connection is something that not only are we really proud of, but it's something that it's an area, it's a priority, it's goal number 3, it's the foundation of our programs, and we're always in continuous improvement on family community engagement. So we took the feedback from various different areas to do the local indicators and meet priority 3, parent and family engagement. Okay, got a lot on this slide. So priority 6, 7, 9, and 10. So priority 6, similarly to parent and family engagement, this comes from different surveys, including also the Healthy Kids Survey. We complete the Healthy Kids Survey every other year. And so this coming fall will be the next cycle that we'll do for the Healthy Kids Survey. So there's a Healthy Kids Survey. There are the annual surveys that we do. There's the family parent community engagement nights, but all of those details were included in the LCAP and in the presentation where we discuss all of our metrics that show that our schools, our students, and our families and our staff feel are safe, and also connection to. Students can talk to our amazing staff. They can access. I'm looking over this way, looking at a colleague of mine. There's a level of comfort and safety. It goes beyond traditional school safety. It's being able to connect, which is important. Access to a broad course of study. So we do this. A lot of I would say the local highlights for us would be our individual conferences with students and families throughout their time with us, before they meet us, while they're with us, and as they're approaching graduation. A lot of times we think of student conferences and back to school nights as an elementary school thing, and we really work with our students to understand their academic pathway and how they're doing, and the different courses they've taken, the different courses they're able to take, and what they still need to take. So we definitely have an individualized, personalized way to meet this priority 7, so that our students can meet not only the basic requirements to graduate from high school, but also to ignite that curiosity and that we're really hoping, that love of learning. And then priorities 9 and 10. Priorities 9 and 10 are 2 that will not be spoken about for the charter, because they're only for county offices of education. Again, the same with our goal 4 on our LCAP, which is for coordinating the services for expelled youth and foster youth throughout the county. Expelled youth, we just spoke enough about that. That just happened to be before this presentation. And then for coordinating services for foster youth, again, that is our student services support team. And we have phenomenal case managers and support people who work with not only alternative education programs, students throughout the entire county and all school districts. So our liaisons and case managers support students who are considered foster youth all around the county. And so we do meet in all of these local indicators. And that is, yes, that is all that we have for the local indicators. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Bruce, the rest of the board, anyone have any questions?
It always feels a little redundant because we go through it all 1 week before and then we talk a little bit more about it again, but
Again, thank you very much.
thank you.
And we appreciate the way in which it is.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I will sit down for a few minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Next is item 6.4, local indicators, presentation for the Career Advancement Charter. Dr. Sabah, would you like to lead off on this?
Yes, thank you. And welcome to Ms. Sonny Sanson, and who's going to be presenting this information. Really, just as you've seen before, as we did last week, just the other side of this, which is a Career Advancement Charter local indicators. So and no additional introduction needed, I think.
Thank you, Dr. Sabah. Good afternoon, board. Thanks for being here today and your ongoing support. This presentation is almost the same. I think what I can do is highlight the minor differences between the Career Advancement Charter local indicators and what you just heard from my colleague, Jen. We have the same requirements that are shared here, what we have to do, bringing it to you, and then as Jen explained, uploading it into the dashboard so that it's available for public review. We have to do all of those same things. We also indicate on the next slide that we are meeting these priority areas through our own analysis, through our own self-reflection, through different surveys and methods that we use similar to alternative education. One thing that is different is we do not administer the California Healthy Kids Survey because we are serving adult students. So we have a version of our own to assess for school climate. And you see here the examples of the different things we do. We also meet quarterly with a student advisory group. One other slight difference is that we don't call it parent engagement, but rather the student engagement and student outreach and student input, honoring the adult learner, right? So I think you've heard throughout some of our presentations that some of these metrics, some of these ways of evaluating don't always work perfectly for alternative learning environments. And so we use the best parts and find ways, creative ways sometimes to make it work for us. I think one other thing I would amplify is that the local indicators gives us an opportunity to look at that qualitative data as well. You know, a lot of the quantitative coming from the state. And so being able to really analyze what the community is telling us, what our staff is sharing. And so we were able to capture it there. And again, just thank you for your support. This was also shared with you, as Jen said, in our LCAP presentation. If you do have any questions, I'm happy to answer them now.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Bruce, okay? Question.
For both of these reports, sorry, I still can't quite talk yet. It occurs to me that for the public, when they see that we have skipped some of those numbered questions, and probably because they're not relevant to our schools and just work, would it be better if we say not applicable or something like that and just have it there so that if the public is looking at that data, they're not just going, hey, they're avoiding something or something like that. I don't know. And also, I guess I'm not clear if the slides you showed us are what goes out to the public.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of, yeah,
No, I
not a big
appreciate
deal.
that. Right. So what was shared on the slide, so let me back up. So priorities 9 and 10, the career advancement charter, we don't address those because we're not a county office, we're a charter. So for foster youth and expelled youth, we're not responsible for priorities 9 and 10. For the ones that are missing, those are all measured by state data. And so the ones reflected in the slide deck and in the report that was shared with you are all of our local indicators that we are responsible for reporting on. So I can see how it would look incomplete, and I apologize for that confusion. But in the dashboard, once we upload into the portal, everything will be there in its entirety.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, Bruce. Any other questions? Then, thank you. Great presentation this week and last. Appreciate the hard work
Thank you, President
all
Roth.
doing.
Thank you.
Amazing. Moving on to item 7.1. And this is where we actually adopt the different plans that were presented to us last week. Item 7.1, adopt 2024-25 Local Control and Accountability Plan, LCAP, for the Santa Cruz County Office of Education. Dr. Sabat?
Well, these were presented to you last week, and also we had a public hearing. And so I think at this point, the staff is hoping to have your support to approve these LCAPs.
Are there any questions?
Any changes made since last week?
Sonia and I were talking and thought, well, oh, maybe we'll just stand up here together. No, there are no changes. If anything were to have come up in public comment last week, or if there was an error in anything that we presented last week, then we would have changed those and then brought it to today's meeting. But there wasn't. There was not anything brought up at that meeting or in the public comments or the public hearing. I also wanted to mention another thing with what Dr. Russell had discussed during her presentation. The pre-review process is very crucial to the LCAP writing, especially when you have a new template like we did this year. And so I spent a lot of time with our CDE, the California Department of Education reviewer for our county LCAP, as well as in the fiscal side, speaking with Hillary, who is our fiscal reviewer for it. And they were confident that we've met all the requirements. At the end of summer, the very beginning of the school year, they will no doubtably come back with, oh, maybe retweak this or whatnot, but we do that process together, and then that would conclude it. But so just so you know, we've extensively gone through our County Office of Education LCAP with the state prior to bringing it last week. And I also went to some of Marcia's district support meetings that were here that were also very helpful. So nothing new to report from what we reported on last week.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do I have a motion to adopt the 2024-25 local control LCAP for Santa Cruz County Office of Education?
I'll move.
Motion by Rachel, you, Sandra?
I'll second.
Second by Sandra. Is it okay to include Bruce in the voice, or do I have to identify him?
I will identify him, President Roth, in the roll call.
So this is it's just a voice.
My apologies, this is a voice vote.
I'm used to make mistakes. Anyway, all those, including Bruce, in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now on to item 7.2, adopt the 2024-25 Local Control Accountability Plan, LCAP, for the Santa Cruz County Career Advancement Charter. Dr. Sabat?
Yes, I think, again, this was presented to you and I don't believe there was any changes that were made to the plan since then. And so we are hoping that we can count on the board support for approval.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board concerning this? No. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
I was looking at Edward. So I'll give it to him. Bruce, would you like to be the
I'll
second?
Yeah.
Thanks. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to 7.3. Adopt the Santa Cruz County Office of Education 2024-25 budget. And Leanne? It doesn't even identify you, Dr. Sabah. Would you like to say something, though?
Well, just I'm grateful to the staff who prepared all the work that went into preparing the LCAP and of course the budget. A great deal of work that these documents represent people behind the scenes. And so just want to give a shout out to Dr. Eisen Gonzalez and Ms. Sony Sanson, and of course our Deputy Superintendent Leanne Reyes, and all the people that work so hard as part of our teams. So over to you, Leanne.
Thank you. So in accordance with Ed Code 42127, we are required to have a public hearing, which we did hold at our last board meeting regarding not only our LCAP, but also our budgets, and also following the proper presentation order as far as the LCAP needs to be adopted prior to the actual budget. I'm bringing forward to you our budget plan for the 24-25 fiscal year. There were no public comments received or staff comments or board comments received after the last presentation that we did. Therefore, this document is the same document you saw at our public hearing, and I'm asking for the board's approval to adopt the budget.
Okay.
So moved.
Any further questions from the board? Do I have a motion to?
I move.
Oh, I'm sorry. Bruce.
No worries.
You made the motion
Oh.
for adoption.
Okay, have a second?
I'll second.
Made by Bruce, seconded by Abel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And with gratitude to all of you for putting it all together in combination with the LCAPs. Job well done. Item 7.4, public disclosure for the SCCEA collective bargaining agreement. Again, Dr. Sabah, do you say anything, or should I just refer it to Leanne?
Leanne can take this one.
Okay, thank you. So what we're bringing forward to you today is an informational item for those of you who have experience in a local school district, collective bargaining agreements, or the disclosure of a collective bargaining agreement, also referred to as a AB 1200, has to be approved by the local school district board. However, as Superintendent Sabah is the one who approves these agreements for us, I am again just emphasizing this as an informational item for your pleasure. So the union that I'm going to be speaking to you first about on this particular item is for our certificated staff, also known as the Santa Cruz County Education Association. Looking at the first page that's on our screen, I'm also on page 425 of our packet. I'm going to speak primarily to this first page that discloses that the value of the increase that was granted for the certificated bargaining unit is $173,630. That represents a ongoing 2% increase to the salary schedule effective with our July 1 fiscal year. In addition to that, further down on the first page on line 4, you can see that we also have an additional 2% obligation when it comes to our statutory benefits. So that would be things like workers' comp, state unemployment, FICA, STRS, and PERS costs. And then lastly, there's a third item on line 5, and the value is $6,000, just over $6,000. And that represents, if you want to slide down to page 2, on page 426 of the agenda, that represents a temporary increase to our health and welfare benefits cap. So circling back up to box 9, this is where we show we have the 2% salary increase happening. And then down under item, I believe it's 12, the COE does pay a split when it comes to increases in health and welfare costs of 30% for the union employee and 70% for the COE. However, this year we made a one-time agreement that if insurance rates increased greater than 8%, that we would pay the 70% split up to that 8% health and welfare increase. And then anything over 8%, we would pick up 100% of the increase. Again, this agreement was for only 1 year. So the value that we saw on the first page of $6,000 represented how much the insurance actually increased over 8%. And I know that's a lot of numbers and percentages. So any questions on that? No? Okay. This disclosure is also brought to you at this particular time because all the numbers that you will see on the following pages of the disclosure 100% match out to our budget. As mentioned in our public hearing last board meeting, all the costs associated with this increase have already been included in our adopted budget. Therefore, it doesn't require any other budget adjustments, and we're all ready to rock and roll starting July 1.
Are there any questions? Okay, thank you, Leanne. Next will be the public item 7.65, public disclosure for SC, how about CSEA, collective bargaining agreement. Again, Leanne.
Thank you. So the agreement that was reached with our classified bargaining unit, also the name of their unit is the California School Employees Association, or CSEA, Chapter 484. The agreement as far as the percent increase and also that little health and welfare cap shift were identical. No other items were negotiated in this particular round. And so I will just share with you what the cost of this agreement was. We estimate the cost for our classified bargaining unit to be just over $250,000 at $250,155. Additional statutory costs will be $97,879. And the increase in our health and welfare benefit cap for the 1 year is $11,572. Again, all the attached pages are exactly the same as the first disclosure, as all amounts have been included in our budget.
Okay. Are there any questions? Okay. Next, 7 points. Next, approve resolution number 24-24. What did I? Oh,
I have one more.
I'm sorry,
disclosure.
I missed the third of our agreements to be accepted, and that is for the certificated management, classified management, and confidential collective and confidential collective bargaining.
Okay, thank you. This is maybe a little unusual, but I really do believe in full transparency. This particular group of individuals is also referred to as the unrepresented. However, we are loud and proud even though we're unrepresented. This group does exist of our management team basically, and then the handful of confidential employees that we have that work for us here at the COE. And so our costs and our agreement were exactly the same. I'm sorry, our percentages and cap were exactly the same as our two bargaining units. However, our costs are now disclosed. I'm on page 459 of your agenda packet. Total costs on salary will be $128,075. Taxes associated with that, about $41,199. And then the difference for our cap comes in at about $3,000, so not very much for our unit. And these costs also were already included in our adopted budget.
Okay, and I'm very sorry about missing the unrepresented group.
No, sorry.
Thank you again, thank you. And thank you to everyone who was involved in this. And smoothly, thank you. Next, approve resolution number 2424, usage of funds generated by propositions 30 and 35, education protection account, the Santa Cruz Office of Education, Alternative Education. So back to Leanne.
Thank you very much. This is housekeeping night for me. These are all the, standard things that you're used to hearing from me about. Circling back up to our budget, this particular resolution is always attached and brought to you at the same time our budget is brought to you. And being as it's a resolution as required by the California Constitution. So the original Prop 30 was passed several years ago, intending to raise specific taxes in order to support education. And then the second round of extension of that was Prop 55, which is why we kind of give recognition to both of those propositions. So every year, we need to bring to you not only what we have actually spent, which is one of the attached pages in your budget packet, but then at this time, I also need to bring forward to you what we're planning to spend and how much we're estimating this to be. It's also important to know that the Education Protection Account, or EPA, is a subset of funding that we receive within the LCFF. So it's not more money on top of the LCF, but rather a subset of dollars that altogether give us our total LCFF that we're entitled to. So for our alternative education program on page, I think it's 479 of your packet, we're estimating revenue limit sources, again, that EPA money, that's a subset, 5.775, 143 to come in. That number most likely can and will change as the year progresses and the state decides how much EPA money is actually being generated. For example, in the current year, they've overpaid us the amount of EPA that we have, so we'll have to be, and that's most districts and people throughout the state, because not as much money came in as they thought. So we set a payable back, but then it gets backfilled with other sources. And in any event, we will be spending the whole $5.7 million on instructional activities, primarily paying our teachers.
Okay. This will take a motion.
I'll move to adopt resolution 2424, usage of funds generated by Props 30 and 55 education protection account for the Alt Ed program.
I'll second.
Made by Edward, seconded by Sandra. So this will take a roll call vote.
Trustee Estrada?
Yes.
Trustee Nichols? Trustee Williams,
Yes.
President Roth.
Yes. So the motion passes. And then moving on into next, Resolution 2425, usage of funds generated by Proposition 30 and 55, education protection account for the Career Advancement Charter. And
So this one's completely different. I'm kidding, it's not, it's identical. I was gonna do another little 10-minute dissertation to just tell you it's exactly the same thing. No, the only thing that's different on this one is the amount of money. The amount of money that the Career Charter will be receiving is $31,082, and again, it will all be spent on teacher salaries.
any questions? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion. Shall I say the whole?
Second?
I'll second.
Motion by Rachel, second by Edward. Again, take a roll call.
Trustee Estrada,
Yes.
Trustee Nichols, Trustee Sanchez,
Yes.
Trustee Van Allen,
Aye.
Trustee Williams,
Yes.
President Roth.
Yes. And so ends our fiscal year for a lot of things. Thank you to all of you for your hard work, and looking forward to our coming year with no changes in the next days. But anyway, thank you all for what you're doing to make our job easier. Our next scheduled meeting is July 18th at 4. I don't know what I'm going to do, not week with you all, but I trust that we'll have some, hopefully some good summer plans going on here. And I will adjourn the meeting. Have
Bye,
fun.
everybody.